Virgin Mafia boss fell for girl he can't touch. Then this happened. A feared young Don, who has never touched anyone, falls for the one woman he swore to protect. He can't lay a finger on her. Not because he's weak, but because one touch breaks a sacred oath and starts a war. Rain, sirens, a rescue in the dark. She's an ER nurse with a secret she doesn't know she's carrying. A music box hides a tiny film. A list of crimes, a map of enemies. Every move pulls them closer, breath to breath, never skin to skin, while killers close in. Then the twist, a traitor inside his house. And the girl? She's the lost key to a rival family's power. Shots fire, glass shatters. He can save her, but only by breaking his vow and burning everything he built. If he touches her, he starts a war. If he doesn't, he loses her forever. So when the chains tighten and the clock runs out, will the man who swore never to touch break his vow to claim the only woman he can't live without? The SUV's tinted windows turned Rome's nighttime glow into a blurred watercolor of neon and streetlights. Emilia hugged Luca's jacket closer, his cologne, sandalwood and something darker, mixing with the metallic scent of rain. Her scrubs were still damp from the sprint through the parking lot, and adrenaline made her fingers tremble against the leather seats. Luca sat beside her, not touching, but close enough that she felt the contained energy radiating from him. His profile was sharp against the passing lights. Aristocratic nose, strong jaw set in granite lines. The violence she'd witnessed minutes ago seemed impossible from this man in his perfect suit. Yet she'd seen him move like a predator, taking down 3 armed men with terrifying precision. "Your stepmother," he said, breaking the tense silence. "She never told you about me." It wasn't a question. Emilia swallowed, her throat dry. "She told me about saving a boy from a fire. Never mentioned he grew up to be—" She gestured at him, at the sleek interior of the vehicle that screamed money and danger. "A monster?" His mouth curved slightly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Those eyes, pale gray like winter ice, studied her with unnerving focus. "I was going to say a mafia boss, but if the shoe fits—" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Fear made her reckless. Instead of anger, something like appreciation flickered across his face. "Careful, Piccola. Most people wouldn't dare speak to me that way. Most people probably didn't just watch you snap someone's arm like a breadstick." She pressed her back against the door, putting what distance she could between them. "Who were they? What do they want from me?" Luca's hand tightened on his knee, the only tell in his otherwise perfect composure. "Your father's old network is unsettled. There's something they believe you have, something valuable." "My father?" Emilia's chest tightened. "He was an accountant who died of a heart attack 3 years ago. What could he possibly—" "Marco wasn't your biological father." Luca's words fell like stones in still water. "And he didn't die of natural causes." The world tilted sideways. Emilia grabbed the door handle, her knuckles white. "You're lying." "I don't lie, Emilia, especially not to you." He shifted, those ice-gray eyes holding hers. "Your real father was Don Antonio Rossi. He hid you with Marco and Helena to protect you. The men hunting you now, they worked for him before his death last month." Memories flashed through her mind. Her father's long hours at the office, the way her stepmother always seemed to know more than she should, the security cameras that appeared around their house when she was 16. Helena knew all this time. She kept you safe. There was something almost gentle in Luca's voice. Both of them did. A sob caught in Emilia's throat. She forced it down, falling back on the clinical detachment that got her through the worst ER shifts. "So what do these men think I have?" "A ledger, your father's real accounts, location of certain assets." Luca's expression hardened. "They believe Marco gave it to you before they killed him." The SUV turned onto a quiet street lined with luxury apartments. Rain drummed harder on the roof as Emilia processed this revelation. Her whole life felt like a lie, unraveling thread by thread. "I don't have any ledger," she said finally. "I don't have anything." "They won't believe that without proof." Luca leaned forward, close enough that she caught another wave of his cologne. "Which is why you're staying with me until we resolve this." "In your penthouse?" She meant it to sound skeptical, but her voice wavered. "How long?" "As long as necessary." His tone left no room for argument. "My security is absolute. No one enters without my permission. No one touches what's mine." Heat flooded Amelia's cheeks at that last word. I'm not yours. No, he agreed, surprising her. You're no one's possession, Amelia, but you are under my protection now. By choice or circumstance, that makes me responsible for your safety. The car slowed, turning into an underground garage. Amelia's heart pounded as reality set in. She was really doing this, going home with a man who killed people, who commanded an empire of shadow and violence, a man who'd saved her life less than an hour ago. Why? She whispered. Why risk yourself for me? Because of a debt to Helena. Luca was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost hypnotic. I have few absolute rules in my life, Amelia. One is that I pay my debts. Another is that I protect what matters. His gaze traveled over her face with an intensity that made her shiver. Right now, those two rules align perfectly. The SUV stopped. Through the windshield, Amelia saw the private elevator that would take them up to his penthouse, up to a world she'd never imagined entering. Last chance to change your mind, Luca said softly, though I strongly advise against it. Amelia looked at him, this dangerous man who moved like death but spoke to her with careful respect, who'd wrapped her in his jacket and offered choices when he could have simply taken. The smart thing would be to run. But sometimes, she thought, survival meant choosing the monster who showed you his teeth rather than the ones hiding in shadows. Drawing a deep breath, she reached for the door handle. Show me your fortress then, Mr. Vitale. The elevator opened directly into Luca's penthouse, a fortress of glass and brushed steel suspended above Rome's twinkling lights. Dawn was still hours away, and the city sprawled below like a blanket of stars. Welcome to your sanctuary, Luca said, his voice oddly gentle in the hushed space. For now. Amelia stepped into the vast open-plan living area, her wet shoes squeaking against immaculate floors. Everything spoke of precise taste, minimal furniture in rich leather, abstract art in muted tones, no personal touches to hint at the man who lived here. The tour starts with security, he continued, leading her down a hallway. Biometric locks on all exits. The elevator won't move without my fingerprint or voice command. Bulletproof glass, armed response team in the building. They stopped at a steel door seamlessly built into the wall. Luca pressed his palm to a hidden scanner. Panic room, stocked for a month. If anything happens, you get in here and stay until I come for you. Or until I suffocate, Amelia muttered. Independent air supply, medical supplies, satellite phone. His jaw tightened. I don't take chances with... He cut himself off, stepping back. With security. Amelia noticed how carefully he maintained distance between them, like an invisible wall existed in the air. His control was absolute, but something flickered in his eyes when she moved closer. The rules are simple, he said, voice clipped. You don't leave without my escort. I don't enter your personal space. The guest suite is yours entirely. And you? She tilted her head. Where do you sleep? His expression frosted over. My rooms are at the opposite end. You won't need to concern yourself with my quarters. Because you're keeping me in a very luxurious cage? The words slipped out before she could stop them. Because I made a vow to Helena Moretti. His voice dropped low. You remain untouched and unharmed, or the truce between our houses shatters. And because the Bratva would view any claim on you as an act of war. Amelia blinked. The Russian Mafia wants me? They wanted to marry you into their line. Before your father died, there were negotiations. His lip curled. They believe your bloodline would legitimize their hold on certain territories. My bloodline. She laughed bitterly. The one I didn't even know about until tonight. I'm a nurse, not some mafia princess they can trade like a poker chip. Something dangerous flashed in Luca's eyes. No, you're not a chip to be traded, which is why you're here, under my protection. Your protection feels a lot like possession. If I wanted to possess you, Amelia, you'd know it. His voice was ice over steel. I don't touch what isn't freely given, and I don't give in to base impulses. Understanding dawned. You're a virgin, she whispered. His expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. By choice. Control is everything. My father taught me that lesson well. Watching him destroy men through their wives, their lovers, their children. Intimacy is a weapon I choose not to give my enemies. Amelia stepped closer, deliberate. His shoulders tensed, but he held his ground. And I'm just another temptation to resist? Another test of your precious control? You're a responsibility. The words seemed to cost him. One I take seriously. Because of the men who tried to grab me, the ones you're so carefully not telling me about? Luca's jaw worked. Bratva enforcers. They believe you have access to your father's ledger, his real accounts, hidden assets, proof of certain arrangements. They think Marco gave it to you before they killed him. The casual mention of her father's murder hit like a physical blow. Emilia wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. I told you I don't have any ledger. I believe you. His voice softened fractionally. But they won't stop looking until they're convinced. Let me show you to your rooms. The guest suite was larger than her entire apartment, with a view over the sleeping city. Luca pointed out the security features, the intercom, the fully stocked closet. My office is down the hall if you need anything, he said, already backing away. Try to rest. Emilia caught his arm. He went absolutely still under her touch. Thank you, she said quietly, for saving my life tonight, for giving me choices, even limited ones. For a moment, something raw and hungry crossed his face. Then his mask slipped back into place, and he extracted himself from her grip with careful precision. Sleep well, Emilia, he said, and was gone. In his office, Luca stood at the window, watching dawn's first pale fingers creep over the horizon. On his desk sat a small music box, Emilia's childhood treasure, retrieved from her apartment by his men. It ticked softly in the silence, like a countdown to something he couldn't name. He hadn't told her about the box yet, hadn't mentioned how his people had swept her apartment for bugs and cameras while gathering essentials, hadn't explained that the music box had been a gift from her real father, Don Rossi, passed through Marco with instructions to keep it safe. Luca's fingers traced the intricate carvings on the lid, but didn't open it. Whatever secrets the box held could wait until morning. For now, he had other concerns, like the way his skin still burned where Emilia had touched him, and how many times he'd have to remind himself that the 5 feet of hospital scrubs and attitude sleeping down the hall was absolutely forbidden to him. The sun rose higher, painting the city in shades of gold and rose. In the guest suite, he knew Emilia was finally sleeping, safe behind his walls and locks and guns. Safe from everyone except perhaps himself. The morning sun spilled through the penthouse windows, warming the pristine kitchen where Luca methodically prepared coffee. His movements were precise, each step calculated as he measured grounds and heated water to the exact temperature. The ritual usually centered him, but today his thoughts kept drifting to his guests down the hall. When Emilia padded into the kitchen wearing his borrowed cashmere sweater, the sight nearly made him drop the French press. The sweater swallowed her small frame, falling to mid-thigh over her scrub pants. Her hair was sleep mussed, but her chin was lifted in that stubborn angle he was beginning to recognize. I need to call my stepmother, she said without preamble. Luca poured 2 cups of coffee before answering. It's not safe. Phone traces. She's probably worried sick. You can't just cut me off from everyone. He slid her cup across the counter, black with 2 sugars. He'd noticed how she took it at the hospital during his surveillance. I can arrange a secure line, but it needs to be brief, untraceable. Emilia wrapped her hands around the warm mug, and he noticed a thin red line across her palm, a souvenir from last night's scuffle. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. Let me see that. She hesitated, then extended her palm. He retrieved the first aid kit from under the sink, his movements efficient but gentle as he cleaned the cut. His hands were steady, betraying nothing of the electric current that raced through him at each point of contact. Your mother, Emilia said softly. You mentioned she died because of this ledger. Luca's fingers stilled for a fraction of a second. Yes, 15 years ago. She knew too much, refused to give up its location. He finished wrapping the gauze, letting go of her hand with careful precision. Which is why we need to be cautious with this call. He set up the encrypted line, standing close enough to monitor, but far enough to give the illusion of privacy. Judge Moretti answered on the first ring. Emilia? Thank God! I'm okay, Helena. I'm safe. Listen to me very carefully. The judge's voice was clipped, tense. Do exactly as Luca says. No questions, no arguments. Your life depends on it. But promise me. Emilia's shoulders slumped. I promise. After the call, she turned to Luca. Happy. This isn't about happiness. It's about keeping you alive. He hesitated. I'd like to examine your father's belongings, the music box specifically. Only if I'm there, too. He nodded, leading her to his office where the ornate box sat on his desk. Emilia traced the carved roses with careful fingers before lifting the lid. A tiny ballerina spun to a tinkling lullaby. My father gave me this when I was 6, she said. It was the last gift before everything changed. Luca watched her face, catching the flash of old pain. But his trained ear had caught something else, a mechanical irregularity in the music box's mechanism. There's something off about the sound, he said. Amelia frowned, tilting the box. The bottom felt feels loose, too. She picked at the edge of the velvet lining, revealing a hidden hinge. Beneath it, taped securely, was a small microfilm cartridge. The ledger, Luca breathed. You've had it all along. Her face went pale. I didn't know. All these years. He carefully removed the microfilm, pocketing it. This needs to be decrypted immediately. The codes could... A soft ping interrupted him. The security system's alert for the service entrance. Luca's posture shifted instantly, all predator grace as he moved to the security panel. Lockdown, he commanded, and the penthouse responded. Automated shutters whispered closed, lights dimmed to emergency settings. He positioned himself at Amelia's shoulder, both of them standing absolutely still in the hushed twilight. The music box gave one final, discordant note before falling silent. What now? Amelia whispered. Now we wait, Luca answered, his voice equally low. And we find out if it's a false alarm or if they've found us. They stood shoulder to shoulder in the artificial dusk, the weight of secrets and unspoken words hanging between them like smoke. The microfilm in Luca's pocket felt impossibly heavy, a tiny cartridge containing enough explosive information to shatter empires or get them both killed. Amelia's borrowed sweater brushed his arm, and he forced himself to focus on the security feeds rather than the warmth of her beside him. Control, he reminded himself. Control was everything. But standing in the dim light, waiting for either danger or reprieve, Luca couldn't help wondering if his legendary self-control was finally meeting its match in the woman who unknowingly held not just the ledger, but perhaps his salvation in her hands. The security system continued its silent vigil, monitoring every approach to their temporary sanctuary. Outside, Rome went about its morning business, unaware of the drama unfolding in the glass tower above. Inside, 2 people waited in the shadows, their breath synchronized, their futures suddenly irrevocably intertwined. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the penthouse windows as Luca's security team completed their sweep. Marco, his head of security, approached with a plastic evidence bag containing a contractor's badge. Found this in the stairwell, boss. Professional fake, but the barcode's wrong. Luca's jaw tightened. A warning, then. Someone wanting them to know they could get this close. Double the perimeter guards. I want eyes on every approach. He found Amelia in the kitchen, her fingers wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. We need to move you to an interior room. The windows are a liability. She didn't argue, following him down the hallway to a windowless suite traditionally used for high-value guests. Rafe, his most trusted guard, took position outside the door with silent efficiency. In his office lab, Luca worked methodically to duplicate the microfilm. The original had to remain pristine, evidence that could shift power dynamics across 3 criminal organizations. His hands moved with precise care, but his mind kept drifting to Amelia in the other room. A crash from down the hall had him moving before conscious thought. He found her in the suite's bathroom, breathing too fast, a broken water glass at her feet. I can't, she gasped. The walls! Focus on my voice, he said, keeping his distance but maintaining eye contact. Breathe with me. 4 counts in, hold for 7, out for 8. She followed his lead, her panic gradually subsiding. When her breathing steadied, she looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. Why are you like this? Like what? You snapped a man's arm last night without blinking, but you make tea and no breathing exercises and... She gestured to her bandaged hand. You remembered I'm allergic to latex. Luca's throat tightened. He could give her this small truth. When I was 16, Judge Moretti sheltered me and my sister for a month. Protected us when everyone else wanted us dead. She taught me different ways to handle crisis. That sometimes strength means knowing when to be gentle. Your sister died 2 years later. Car bomb meant for me. The words came out clipped, final. Amelia's face softened with understanding. Before she could respond, Nico appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Boss, we have a situation. In his office, Nico laid out Morozov's ultimatum. 48 hours to surrender the ledger or he starts dismantling our operations, taking territory, eliminating key personnel. He's desperate, Luca observed. The ledger must have something that could destroy him. Or someone else pulling his strings, Nico suggested, too casual. Want me to arrange a meet? Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first. The decrypted microfilm revealed years of meticulous accounting and systematic betrayal. Page after page showed Emilia's father skimming from multiple families' operations, doctoring books to hide the theft. But it was the last section that made Luca's blood run cold. Falsified ledger entries, fabricated evidence, a careful frame job that had condemned Luca's father to death by his own lieutenants for supposed embezzlement. The truth he'd spent 15 years hunting sat in stark black and white before him. He found Emilia in the suite sitting room, curled in an armchair, with a book she wasn't reading. She looked up when he entered, immediately tensing at his expression. What did you find? He sat across from her, forcing himself to maintain eye contact as he destroyed her world. Your father wasn't just an accountant for the families. He was stealing from all of them, millions over decades, and he forged evidence that got my father killed. She shook her head. No, that's not. He wouldn't. The proof is in his own handwriting. Timestamps, account numbers, signature patterns that match known documents. Stop! She stood abruptly, swaying. Just stop! Emilia, don't! Her voice cracked. Don't you dare try to comfort me right now. She fled to the guest suite, slamming the door. Luca remained in the hallway, one hand pressed against the doorframe until his knuckles went white. Through the heavy wood, he could hear her muffled sobs. Beyond the windows, Rome's lights began to flicker on one by one, painting the darkening sky in jewel tones. He stayed there, surrounded by the growing night, listening to her grief echo his own from 15 years ago. Rafe appeared silently at his shoulder. Perimeter's secure, boss. Want me to post someone closer? No, give her space. He straightened, adjusting his cuffs. But Rafe, don't let her out of your sight. The bodyguard nodded, taking up his position as Luca forced himself to walk away. In his office, the microfilm sat innocent as a snake in its protective case. He had his answers now, but they brought no satisfaction. Only the bitter taste of ashes and the sound of Emilia's tears etched into his memory. The city sparkled beyond his windows, oblivious to the pain and betrayal playing out in the glass tower above. Somewhere out there, enemies were moving pieces into position, counting on the chaos this revelation would bring. They didn't understand that pain made him more dangerous, not less. And now he had something beyond revenge to fight for. The woman whose world he'd just shattered, and the chance to prove that not all debts ended in betrayal. Dawn crept over Rome, finding Luca already at his desk. The night had offered no rest, only endless circles of thought. The ledger's revelations, Emilia's tears, the weight of secrets still untold. A soft noise drew his attention. Emilia stood in his office doorway, dark circles beneath her eyes matching his own. I can't sleep, she said simply. And I'll go crazy sitting in that room. Luca checked his watch. The gym then. Physical exhaustion helps. The private gym occupied the penthouse's east wing, windows overlooking the awakening city. Exercise machines gleamed in the morning light, but Luca headed straight for the heavy bag, wrapping his hands with practiced motions. Emilia perched on a weight bench, drawing her knees up. She watched as he shed his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves, the burn scar stark against his forearm. The first punch landed with surgical precision, each hit after carried the frustration of the night, the rhythm steady and controlled. Sweat darkened his shirt as minutes passed. Why did you become a nurse? He asked between combinations, surprising them both. She traced patterns on her knee. I wanted to help people who had no one else. Working nights in the ER, I saw too many overdoses, too many addicts bleeding out on sidewalks because they were afraid to seek help. Her voice strengthened. I want to open a community clinic near the hospital, somewhere people can go without fear of judgment or arrest. Noble dream, he said, landing another precise strike. Don't say it like that, like it's naive. Wasn't my intention. He stepped back from the bag, rolling his shoulders. I fund 3 women's shelters and 2 addiction recovery programs. Anonymous donations. She blinked. You do? Power isn't just for destruction, Emilia. Their eyes held across the gym's polished floor. The morning light caught the sheen of sweat on his throat, and Emilia looked away first. Come here, he said. You should know the basics while you're here. She approached cautiously. I took a self-defense class in college. Show me your stance. She shifted into position, feet apart, hands raised. Luca circled her slowly, professional distance maintained. Wider base, he instructed. You need... His hands lifted, almost touching her hips to adjust her position, then dropped. His jaw clenched visibly. Turn 45 degrees. She complied, hyper-aware of his proximity. The vow to my stepmother really means that much. Everything I am is built on keeping my word. His voice was rough. Even when... The door burst open. Rafe filled the frame, expression grim. Movement on the west rooftop. 2 figures with equipment. Luca's demeanor shifted instantly to lethal focus. Panic room. Now! He guided Amelia through the gym's rear exit, down the hall to the reinforced steel door. The biometric lock clicked open at his palm print. 20 minutes, he promised, then sealed her inside. The panic room was a steel box with basic amenities: cot, water, tablet for security feeds. Amelia paced the confined space, watching Luca's men sweep the neighboring buildings through multiple camera angles. After 15 endless minutes, Luca's voice came through the intercom. Clear. Maintenance crew with legitimate credentials, but we're increasing patrols. The door opened to his concerned face. Amelia stepped out on shaking legs. I'm not afraid of dying, she confessed. I'm afraid of being reduced to a chess piece, a thing to be moved around by men fighting over ledgers and territory. Luca's expression darkened. You are not an object to me. The words carried weight beyond their simple meaning. They walked in silence back to her suite. Rafe was already there, setting up a cot outside her door with military efficiency. 24-hour watch rotation, Luca explained. Rafe has first shift. The bodyguard nodded to Amelia, professional and reassuring. Get some rest, Luca said softly. I'll have food sent up later. In his office, he stared at the ledger, printouts spread across his desk. His father's supposed betrayal, the execution ordered by his own captains, the years of shame that followed, all built on carefully crafted lies. The papers blurred as exhaustion crept in. He thought of Amelia's dream clinic, of using power to heal rather than hurt, of her stance in the gym, the effort it took not to touch her, of promises kept and debts unpaid. His phone buzzed, updated security protocols from his team. Somewhere in the city, enemies were watching, waiting. But here in his fortress of steel and glass, Amelia was safe. It would have to be enough. He reached for another report, fighting sleep. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the papers that could rewrite history. His father's, Amelia's, his own. But that was a battle for another hour. For now, there was only the quiet rhythm of the security feeds, the distant sound of traffic below, and the knowledge that down the hall, behind a guarded door, Amelia might finally be finding rest. The late afternoon sun slanted through the penthouse windows, painting long shadows across Luca's private lounge. From her hidden vantage point on the mezzanine, Amelia watched 6 men in expensive suits file in, each nodding deferentially to Luca. The construction investors' meeting was clearly a front. These were his capos, the men who controlled different pieces of his empire. Luca stood by the bar, his presence commanding the room without effort. He wore a charcoal suit that fit like armor, his usual control evident in every measured movement as he poured drinks. Amelia noticed how the others maintained careful distance, as if he emanated an invisible force field of authority. Gentlemen, Luca said, voice carrying easily in the hushed space. Updates. One by one, they reported on their territories, shipping manifests, protection payments, union negotiations. Amelia's medical brain cataloged details, how the oldest capo favored his right knee, how the youngest hands shook slightly when Luca's attention turned his way. The fourth man, Marco, she heard them call him, stepped forward with a thick envelope. The dock workers are demanding more. We need to increase our cut to cover it. The rates were set last quarter, Luca replied evenly. Times change. Costs rise. Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. Unless you want labor problems. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Luca's expression didn't change as he lit a cigar, the flame throwing shadows across his face. Show me the numbers. Marco handed over his ledger. Luca studied it, took a long draw on the cigar, then moved with devastating speed. He grabbed Marco's right hand and pressed the lit end against his palm for one deliberate second. Marco's strangled cry echoed off the glass walls. The other capos went very still. You steal from my people. You burn. Luca's voice was soft, almost gentle. The workers get their fair share. You get what we agreed. Try to extort more, and next time it won't be just your hand. Clear? Yes, boss. Marco cradled his blistered palm, face gray. Dismissed. All of you. Emilia pressed back, against the wall as the men filed out, her heart hammered, mind replaying that controlled violence, the precision of it, the way Luca had maintained perfect composure throughout. It horrified her, and yet, a small, primal part of her brain whispered that this was a man capable of keeping her safe, no matter what came. She didn't realize she was shaking until Luca appeared at the top of the mezzanine stairs. You shouldn't have watched that, he said quietly. Is that who you really are? Her voice cracked. Someone who burns people? In this world? Yes. He moved closer, stopping when she flinched. But never with you, Emilia, never. How can I believe that? His eyes lowered, the first time she'd seen him show vulnerability. Because I've spent my entire life learning control, in every way. Understanding dawned. You meant it literally before, about not touching anyone. Sex is surrender, he said flatly. My father used people's desires against them. I chose a different path. She thought of trauma patients in her ER, the ones who built walls to survive. Control as armor. Yes. His gaze met hers, startled by her lack of mockery. Hours later, they sat on the kitchen floor sharing Thai takeout, security feeds glowing on tablets nearby. The formal facade had cracked slightly, letting exhaustion show through. Pass the pad krapao, Emilia said. Luca squinted at containers. The what? The basil chicken thing. Ah, why didn't you just say that? He handed it over, then attempted to pronounce the Thai name, mangling it completely. Emilia's laugh burst out unexpectedly, the first genuine one in days. That was terrible. Thai is not my language, he admitted, the corner of his mouth quirking up. Clearly. She stood to rinse their plates, still smiling. At least you have other talents. Like burning people? Like protecting people, she corrected softly. The moment stretched, heavy with unspoken things. Emilia turned back to the sink, aware of his eyes on her. The city lights sparkled beyond the windows, deceptively peaceful. A small red dot appeared on the window frame beside her. Down! Luca's body slammed into hers as glass shattered with a sound like breaking ice. They hit the floor hard as alarms began to scream through the penthouse. His weight pressed her into the tile, one arm cradling her head while the other reached for his weapon. She could feel his heart pounding where their chests met. Stay down, he ordered as boots thundered in the hallway, his security team responding. Keep your head covered. More glass cracked somewhere nearby. The alarm's wail filled her ears as Luca maintained his protective position, shielding her from whatever might come through those broken windows. In that moment, despite everything she'd witnessed that day, she had never felt safer. Glass crunched under Luca's shoes as he shielded Emilia with his body, one arm locked around her waist while the other pressed his comm unit. Perimeter. Breach, north side. I want eyes on every rooftop within range. Now. Copy that, boss. Rafe's voice crackled through. 3 teams deploying. Another shot pinged off the reinforced glass, creating a spiderweb of cracks but not penetrating. Luca's mouth pressed against Emilia's ear. When I say move, we crawl to the hallway. Stay low. She nodded against his chest, her nurse's training kicking in. Steady hands, controlled breathing, assess and respond. The alarm's wail covered their movement as they inched toward the door on hands and knees. Once in the hallway, Luca scooped her up in one fluid motion. Faster this way! His stride ate up the distance to the stairwell, where 2 guards waited with weapons drawn. Decoy convoy rolling out, sir, one reported as they passed. Good, keep them guessing. Luca bypassed the main stairs, heading instead for a service elevator hidden behind an unmarked door. The small space hummed as they descended to sublevels Emilia hadn't known existed. The doors opened to reveal an armory that would make a military commander envious. Weapon racks lined reinforced walls, and monitors displayed every angle of the building and surrounding streets. Luca set her down but kept one hand at her lower back. Status report, he barked. Rafe appeared from a side room. Sniper's nest found on the Palazzo Rinaldi. Professional setup, but they cleared out fast. No shell casings. Of course not. Luca's jaw clenched, because they knew exactly when to strike and how long they'd have before our response team arrived. We have a leak. Emilia watched his face as he processed this betrayal, seeing the quick calculations behind his eyes. Who had the full security protocol, she asked. Nico, as consigliere, Rafe, as head of security. the building super who was vetted 6 ways from Sunday. Luca turned to the monitors, studying them. 3 possibilities, and I can't risk being wrong. So what's the play? Rafe asked. We move her to the coast house for 24 hours while I smoke out the mole. Luca's tone allowed no argument. Minimal team, different route than usual. I want confused rats scurrying in daylight where I can see them. Within 30 minutes, they were in a heavily armored SUV rolling through pre-dawn Rome. Emilia sat in the back with Luca, while Rafe drove and another guard rode shotgun. The city slowly woke around them, early workers trudging to bakeries and cafes, unaware of the violence that had shattered the night. Why didn't you ever leave? Emilia asked softly, watching Luca's profile in the growing light. You could have walked away, started fresh somewhere else. He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he did, his voice was low but certain. Because ending it means more than escaping it. I wanted to make the family untouchable, not through fear or brutality, but through legitimate power, so it could never be used as a weapon against the people under my protection. Like your sister. She remembered his earlier mention of Judge Moretti sheltering them both. Like everyone who depends on us, the dock workers, the shopkeepers who pay for security, the families who need medical care they can't afford. His eyes met hers. Your community clinic idea? I could make that happen. Emilia's hand moved across the leather seat, stopping inches from his. An offer, not a demand. Luca remained still, but he didn't pull away either. The space between their fingers hummed with possibility. The convoy wound along coastal roads as the sun climbed higher, finally turning onto a private drive that hugged rugged cliffs. Salt wind whipped at Emilia's hair when she stepped out, the villa rising before them like a fortress of stone and glass. Waves crashed against the rocks below, their rhythm a constant thunder. Luca moved with practiced efficiency, sweeping each room with his weapon drawn while Emilia waited in the foyer. The house was all clean lines and open spaces, with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the sea. A massive hearth dominated one wall, its ashes long cold. Clear, he called finally, holstering his gun. You can come through now. Emilia walked the rooms slowly, taking in the sparse luxury, everything necessary, nothing excessive, like Luca himself. For the first time since that rainy night outside the hospital, true quiet settled around them. No city noise, no guards murmuring into comms, no hum of security systems, just the waves and their own breathing, synced without conscious thought. She paused at a window, watching foam spray against dark rocks. It's beautiful here. And defensible, Luca added, coming to stand beside her. One road in, clear sightlines, reinforced walls. Always the strategist? Always. But his voice had softened, matching the hushed atmosphere of the house. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but charged with awareness. Every breath seemed louder here, every slight movement magnified. When Emilia shifted her weight, the brush of her sleeve against his made them both go still. Luca's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. His expression hardened as he read the message. Nico's calling an emergency meeting of the capos. Claims there's movement from the Bratva. Is there? We'll find out. He typed a quick response, then surveyed the house again with calculating eyes. Rafe will coordinate the perimeter team. You'll be safe here while I handle this. But Emilia caught the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand lingered near his weapon. Whatever came next would be dangerous, and for the first time since he'd saved her in that rain-soaked alley, they would face it separated. The afternoon sun pierced through the villa's windows, casting long shadows across the polished floors. In the kitchen, Luca moved with the same precision he brought to everything else, measuring pasta into boiling water while Emilia perched on a counter, watching him with poorly concealed amusement. What? He asked, not looking up from where he stirred the sauce. Nothing. Just enjoying the sight of Rome's most dangerous man wearing an apron. She swung her legs, grinning when he shot her a look. Any other hidden talents I should know about? Ballroom dancing? Underwater basket weaving? Cooking isn't a talent, it's a survival skill. But there was a hint of softness around his mouth. Pass me the basil. She hopped down, bringing him the fresh herbs. Let me guess. You learned from some stern Italian nonna who threatened you with a wooden spoon if you messed up her recipe? My mother, actually. His hand stilled for a moment before resuming their work. She believed every man should know how to feed himself properly. The simple pasta came together quickly. Garlic, olive oil, fresh tomatoes, and herbs. They carried their plates to the long wooden table facing the sea, where dark clouds were beginning to gather on the horizon. The first rumble of thunder rolled in as they sat down. "Storm's coming," Amelia observed, twirling pasta onto her fork. Her eyes widened at the first bite. "Okay, I take back my teasing. This is incredible." Luca accepted the compliment with a slight nod, but his attention was on the darkening sky. Lightning flickered, and the power gave an ominous flutter. "There are candles in the kitchen drawer," he said. "We should get them ready." As if on cue, the lights dimmed and steadied, then dimmed again. Amelia helped him gather candles, placing them strategically around the room. The storm drew closer, rain beginning to lash against the windows. "Tell me about her," Amelia said softly as they returned to their meal. "Your mother." Luca's jaw tightened, but after a long moment he spoke. "She was kind. Too kind for our world, probably. She'd help anyone who needed it, regardless of family allegiance." His voice grew distant. "That's what got her killed in the end." "What happened?" "I was 16. Father's enemies got hold of some sensitive information. Ledger details, territory agreements. They used it to find one of our safe houses." His knuckles went white around his fork. "They surrounded the place, set it on fire. She got my sister out through a basement window, but the smoke—" He stopped, swallowed. "By the time I got there, it was too late." Amelia's heart ached. "That's why Judge Moretti took you in?" "For a month. She gave me a rosary the day we left, told me vows mean nothing if you don't choose them daily." His eyes met hers across the candlelight. "So I chose control. No drinking, no sex. Nothing that could cloud my judgment or make me weak." Thunder cracked overhead, making Amelia jump. Without thinking, Luca's hand landed on her knee, steady and warm. They both froze, electricity that had nothing to do with the storm crackling between them. Luca withdrew his hand as if burned. "I can't touch you, Em." His voice was rough, strained. "I didn't ask you to break your vow," she whispered. "I asked you to be human." The power chose that moment to fail completely, plunging them into candlelight. In the sudden darkness, their breathing seemed louder, more intimate. "Your father," Luca said after a while, changing the subject. "The ledger doesn't erase the good things he did for you." Amelia traced patterns in the condensation on her water glass. "No, it doesn't. He taught me to ride a bike, helped me with my science homework, came to every school play." She smiled sadly. "People can be more than one truth." "Yes," Luca agreed softly, watching her face in the flickering light. "They can." The storm raged for hours, keeping them trapped inside as afternoon faded to evening. They cleared the dishes by candlelight, moving around each other in a careful dance of not quite touching. When the temperature dropped with the power out, Luca built a fire in the hearth. They dragged 2 comfortable chairs close to the flames, sharing the warmth as rain drummed against the windows. The conversation drifted to lighter topics. Amelia's most bizarre ER stories, Luca's sister's childhood attempts to train their father's guard dogs to do ballet. As the evening wore on, exhaustion began to creep in. The fire cast everything in soft amber light, making the room feel smaller, more intimate. Amelia curled up in her chair, head resting against the cushioned back. Luca's posture gradually relaxed, though he never fully let his guard down. The candles burned lower, wax pooling in steady drips. Outside, the storm began to ease, rain softening to a gentle patter. Neither suggested moving to their separate rooms. Instead, they drifted off where they sat, close enough that their breaths mingled in the quiet space between their chairs. The last thing Amelia saw before sleep took her was Luca's face in profile, softened by firelight, looking younger than she'd ever seen him. His usual mask of control had slipped just slightly, revealing the man beneath, the one who cooked pasta and told stories about his mother and reached for her when thunder struck. The dying embers cast dancing shadows on the walls as candle stubs guttered in their holders. In sleep, they had shifted closer, their hands dangling mere inches apart between the chairs. The room glowed amber, holding them in a bubble of warmth and tentative peace, while the last rumbles of thunder faded into the distance. Gray light seeped through the villa's windows as Amelia stirred, her neck stiff from sleeping in the chair. Luca was already up, pacing by the window with his phone pressed to his ear, tension radiating from his shoulders. "Repeat exactly what happened," he commanded into the phone, his voice low and sharp. Amelia stretched, watching his expression darken as he listened. The storm had left debris scattered across the villa's grounds, branches and leaves plastering the wet stones. "And you intercepted this threat, how?" Luca's tone held an edge she hadn't heard before. His fingers drummed against the window frame as he listened to Nico's response. Something in Nico's explanation made Luca's hand freeze mid-tap. His eyes narrowed, catching Amelia's gaze across the room. He ended the call without another word. "Pack your things," he ordered. "We're leaving. Now." What happened? Nico claims he found our route here was compromised. Says he intercepted Morozov's men before they could set up an ambush. Luca's jaw clenched. But he mentioned details about our convoy formation that only someone inside would know. Amelia stood, wrapping her arms around herself. "You think he's the leak? I'm going to find out." Luca pulled out another phone, typing rapidly. "I just sent coordinates for a warehouse in Ostia to my lieutenants. Told them we're moving sensitive cargo there tonight." His eyes met hers. Only Nico got the real location. They waited in tense silence. Amelia insisted on packing properly, carefully wrapping her father's music box in a soft sweater. The familiar weight of it in her hands brought a small measure of comfort. Within the hour, Luca's phone buzzed. His expression hardened as he read the message. "Morozov's men just hit the warehouse I sent to Nico." He slipped the phone away, his movements controlled but crackling with contained violence. "We have our traitor!" In the SUV racing back to Rome, trees and countryside blurred past the windows. Amelia clutched the music box in her lap, her thoughts churning. "What happens to traitors?" she asked quietly. "In your world?" Luca didn't look at her, but his voice was steel. "They answer for every drop of blood they've spilled, every life they've endangered." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "No exceptions." The city materialized on the horizon, its ancient domes and spires stark against the afternoon sky. Luca drove them to his riverfront club, an elegant building with Art Deco touches and mirrored windows that reflected the water's shimmer. Inside, he led her up a curved staircase to a luxurious office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the main floor below, the glass subtly thicker than normal. Bulletproof, she realized. "You'll stay here with Rafe," Luca instructed, checking sightlines and exits. "No matter what happens down there, you don't leave this room. The glass will hold against anything they bring." Rafe took up position by the door, his presence solid and reassuring. "No one gets past me, boss." Luca outlined his trap. A meeting at midnight, word spread that the ledger would be moved. The perfect opportunity for Nico to spring whatever trap he'd planned with Morozov. "If this goes wrong," Amelia started. "It won't." She stepped closer, ignoring his slight retreat. Before he could pull away, she reached up and cupped his face in her hands. His skin was warm, rough with evening stubble. "Don't die," she whispered. For one heartbeat, Luca leaned into her touch, his eyes closing briefly. It was the first crack she'd seen in his control, this tiny surrender to human contact. Then he straightened, gently removing her hands. "Watch the floor," he said. "If anything feels wrong, use the panic button under the desk. It'll bring every guard in the building running." Hours crawled by. Amelia paced the office, watching men filter into the club below. Some she recognized from Luca's organization, others were strangers with hard eyes and expensive suits. Luca moved among them like a shark through dark water, all contained power and lethal grace. At 11:45, Rafe's burner phone buzzed. He read the message, his expression unchanging but his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "Swap done. Bring the girl." The words made Amelia's blood run cold. Rafe slowly tucked the phone away, then moved to stand between her and the door. His hand didn't reach for his weapon, but his stance shifted subtly into a fighting position. "Rafe?" Her voice wavered. "Something's wrong," he said quietly, eyes scanning the room. That wasn't our code phrase for a clean exchange. Below, more men were entering the club. Luca stood by the bar, outwardly relaxed, but watching everything. The clock on the wall ticked toward midnight, each second landing like a hammer blow in the tense silence of the office. Amelia clutched her father's music box closer, its familiar weight grounding her as she realized the depth of the betrayal unfolding. They weren't just facing one traitor. The rot went deeper, and she was still the prize they all wanted to claim. The office door burst open with a crack that made Amelia jump. Nico strode in, flanked by two men with hard faces and combat stances. His usually perfect suit was wrinkled, his charm replaced by something feral. "Orders from the boss," Nico announced, holding up a paper. "We're moving her now?" Rafe's hand shifted to his weapon. "Wrong code phrase earlier. That's not his signature." "Always the loyal dog," Nico sneered. The room exploded into motion. Rafe drew first, but one of Nico's men was already lunging with a blade that caught him in the ribs. Blood bloomed across his shirt, but Rafe didn't fall. He grabbed his attacker's wrist, twisted, and slammed him into the desk with bone-crushing force. Emilia's training kicked in. Assess, act, survive. She grabbed a heavy crystal paperweight from the desk and hurled it at the second man's temple as he raised his gun. It connected with a sickening thud. He staggered, but Nico was faster. His arm locked around her throat from behind, dragging her toward the stairwell. She clawed at his grip, gasping. Below on the club floor, Luka stood toe-to-toe with the bear of a man. Morozov, she realized. Their quiet words carried lethal intent. "You break faith," Morozov was saying. The girl was promised. Gunshots cracked upstairs. Luka's head snapped up, his careful control shattering. He took the stairs 3 at a time as Morozov's men surged forward. Luka's capos formed a human wall, suits and weapons gleaming under the club lights. In the stairwell, Nico pressed Emilia against the wall, his breath hot on her neck. "You don't even know what you are, do you? Your precious Judge Moretti lied to everyone." "What are you talking about?" Emilia spat. "You're Don Rossi's daughter, his blood. Moretti hid you to keep you clean, but you were always meant to be a bargaining chip." His laugh was ugly. "Why do you think Luka won't touch you? The Bratva had first claim. You're worth territories, alliances. One wrong move with you breaks a dozen truces." The words hit like physical blows. Her father, not her father. Her whole life a carefully constructed lie. The room spun. "Stop!" Luka's voice cut through her spiral. He stood in the doorway, weapon raised. Nico yanked her closer, pressing his gun under her jaw. "Here's how this ends. The ledger for the girl, now." "You know I can't." "Then I paint the walls with her blood, and Morozov burns your empire to ash." Luka's eyes met Emilia's. In that split second, she saw something shift in him. A calculation. A decision. He slowly lowered his gun. "Rafe," he called, not looking away from Emilia. "Hit the fire alarm." The sprinklers burst to life, drenching them in seconds. In the chaos of water and noise, Luka moved like lightning. He tackled Nico, driving him back. The gun went off with a deafening crack. Pain blazed across Emilia's shoulder, a graze her medical training supplied through the shock. She stumbled, but stayed upright. Sirens wailed outside. The club erupted in motion as people fled the water and approaching police. Nico slipped away in the crowd, his remaining man dragging their wounded companion. Emilia pressed her hand to her bleeding shoulder, staring at Luka. Water dripped from his hair, his clothes, but she barely saw it through the red haze of betrayal. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew I was leveraged this whole time." Don't!" Her voice cracked. "You kept me like a chess piece, protected your investment." "No." He stepped closer. She stepped back. "I never wanted you as a piece on the board, never as currency or territory or anything but yourself." She turned away, her whole body shaking. Everything she thought she knew about herself, about her family, about him, all of it built on lies. Water mixed with tears on her face as the sirens grew louder. Rafe pressed a cloth to his side, moving to flank the door. "Boss, we need to move. Police will be here in 2 minutes." Luka didn't take his eyes off Emilia. "The service exit is clear. We have a safe route to—" "Don't tell me where," she cut in. "I don't want to know. I don't want to be part of your plans anymore." "You're bleeding. I'm an ER nurse. I can handle a graze." She straightened her spine, fought down the tremors. Just give me a minute. Please." He nodded once, tension visible in every line of his body, but he kept his distance, respecting her need for space even now. Water continued to rain down, the sprinklers creating a curtain between them. Through the window, blue and red lights began to strobe against the building's facade. Time was running out. But for these few seconds, Emilia let herself feel everything. The physical pain, the emotional devastation, the crushing weight of secrets finally exposed. She was Don Rossi's daughter, a Mafia princess hidden in plain sight. No wonder Luka had kept his distance despite their growing connection. She wasn't just protected by his vow to Moretti. She was radioactive, a match that could ignite a war. The sirens grew closer. Soon they would have to run, to hide, to plan their next move. But right now, Emilia stood in the artificial rain and mourned for the simple life she'd never actually had. The sunrise painted Rome's skyline in watercolor hues, but Emilia barely noticed from her rigid position on Luka's leather couch. The doctor, a silver-haired man with steady hands, worked in silence, cleaning and dressing her shoulder wound. The graze burned, but she welcomed the physical pain. It was simpler than the emotional devastation churning inside her. Luca stood by the window, his reflection a dark slash against the morning light. He'd tried to speak 3 times since they'd returned to the penthouse. Each time, Amelia had lifted her hand in a sharp gesture of silence. "The wound won't scar," the doctor said, taping the last piece of gauze. "Keep it clean. Change the dressing twice daily." Amelia nodded. Medical instructions were familiar territory. Everything else in her world had become quicksand. After the doctor left, the silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Luca turned from the window. Don't." Her voice was raw. "Just tell me everything. No more protection. No more half-truths." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare display of agitation. "Judge Moretti came to me the night before I took over the family. She had proof of my father's crimes, leverage to force negotiations, but she wanted one thing above all else, your safety. Because I'm Don Rossi's daughter." The words tasted like ash. "Yes, she made me swear to keep you untouched, uninvolved in our world until you turned 25. That was her condition for peace between our houses. I'm 24. Amelia's laugh held no humor. "So I'm what? Property in escrow? Waiting for the warranty to expire?" "You were never property." His voice carried an edge of desperation. "The vow was to give you choice. Real choice, not one made under pressure or manipulation." "Choice?" She stood, ignoring the pull of stitches. "I didn't get to choose anything. My whole life has been other people deciding what I get to know, who I get to be. I wanted to tell you, but you didn't. You played warden instead, keeping the dangerous truth locked away like I was too fragile to handle it. The truth gets people killed in our world." "It's not my world." She pressed her palms to her temples. "Or maybe it is, maybe it always was, and I just lived in a pretty bubble of lies." Luca crossed to his office, movements precise. He returned with a thick folder, copies of the ledger's contents. "Here, everything we decoded from the microfilm. What happens next is your decision." Amelia stared at the folder. "What do you mean?" "Take it to the police. Burn it. Sell it to the highest bidder. Your call." His face was carefully blank. "I won't stop you." She took the folder with trembling hands. "Why give me this power now?" "Because it was always yours. He looked away. "I wanted to protect you from having to use it." Amelia clutched the folder to her chest. "I need time, space, to think without you hovering like a shadow of obligation." He nodded once. "There's a private apartment 3 blocks east. Secure building, separate entrance. Rafe will escort you. And your men will watch from a distance." "Yes." No pretense, no denial. "I won't cage you, but I won't leave you unprotected either." She gathered the music box and her few belongings. At the penthouse door, she paused. Did any of it matter? The connections we made? The truths we shared? Or was it all just duty? His silence spoke volumes. The apartment was a study in neutral tones and careful luxury. A gilded cage, but a cage with breathing room. Amelia spent hours with the ledger spread across a pale oak table, reading entries until numbers and dates blurred together. The music box played its familiar lullaby on repeat, a soundtrack to her unraveling reality. Her father, the man who'd raised her, had skimmed money from multiple families, doctored books to hide the theft. The same creative accounting had condemned Luca's father. The ripples of those choices were still causing waves years later. With shaking fingers, she dialed Judge Moretti's number. "Amelia." Her stepmother's voice trembled. "Are you safe?" "Safe?" Amelia's grip whitened on the phone. "I just found out my entire life is a lie, that my real father was a Mafia Don, that you've been orchestrating my fate from the shadows. So no, I don't feel particularly safe right now. I did what I had to. To protect me. Yes, everyone keeps saying that." Amelia's throat ached. "Did you ever plan to tell me? When you turned 25, when you could choose with full knowledge and legal independence." A pause. "Please don't meet with anyone tonight. Stay where Luca can protect you." Amelia ended the call without responding. She stared at the business card Nico had slipped her during the chaos, his number scrawled in precise handwriting. Her fingers moved over her phone's keyboard. "You want the ledger? Meet me where it started, hospital parking lot, 8 p.m. Come alone." She tucked a slim first aid kit under her coat and slipped pepper spray into her pocket. The sun was already sliding toward the horizon, painting the apartment's walls in deepening amber. Soon it would be time to face the truth, all of it, head on. In the gathering dusk, the music box played its final notes before winding down to silence. Rain beaded on Amelia's jacket as she stood beneath the hospital parking lot's flickering lamp. The same spot where everything had changed just days ago. Now the lot was nearly empty, save for a few cars belonging to the night shift. Puddles reflected fractured light, and the air carried the sharp scent of wet asphalt. From his rooftop position, Luca tracked her through his scope, jaw clenched. He hadn't ordered Rafe to follow her, but his most trusted man had messaged anyway. "She's making a play." Now they watched, a dozen of his best positioned in shadows, as a black sedan rolled silently into the lot. Nico emerged alone, exactly as requested. Too perfectly compliant. His shoes clicked against the wet pavement as he approached, that snake charmer smile in place. "Brave girl," he called. "Coming out here all alone." "Not brave?" Amelia's voice carried clearly in the damp air. "Just tired of being a chess piece. I want answers." "And you think I'll give them?" He stopped several yards away, hands loose at his sides. "Tell me why my father died." The words cracked like a whip. Luca's finger tightened imperceptibly on his rifle's guard. Through the scope, he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she planted her feet. Nico's laugh was ugly. "Your precious father? He was a thief who got greedy, skimmed from every family's books, doctored the numbers, even framed Luca's father to cover his tracks." His lip curled. The Bratva wanted that proof. The microfilm showed everything, would have kept certain people in line. And me? Was I just another asset? The Don's secret daughter? You were the perfect leverage until Luca's stupid vow made you untouchable. Amelia reached into her coat and withdrew a thick envelope. Nico's eyes locked onto it like a predator. He lunged forward, but Amelia stepped back. "You want it? Here." She tossed it at his feet. Nico snatched it up, tearing it open, his face contorted as he pulled out blank pages. "You little—" "I wanted a confession." Amelia's chin lifted. "And you just gave me one." Nico's laugh echoed off concrete pillars as he pulled out his phone. Clever girl, but not clever enough. He pressed a single button. The screech of tires shattered the night. 2 panel vans roared in from opposite directions, cutting off escape routes. But Luca was ready. Floodlights blazed to life, temporarily blinding everyone below. Armored SUVs surged from hidden positions, boxing in the vans. Dark figures repelled from catwalks, Luca's men dropping into position with military precision. The first gunshot cracked like thunder. Chaos erupted. Bullets pinged off metal and concrete. Glass shattered. Men shouted in Russian and Italian. Through his scope, Luca saw Amelia dive behind a concrete barrier, then emerged to drag a screaming nurse to safety. Even now, in the middle of a firefight, she chose to save lives. "Stay down!" he heard her shout, pressing gauze from her hidden medical kit to the nurses. Grazed arm. Nico used the mayhem to his advantage, darting through the crossfire toward Amelia. Luca swore and abandoned his position, racing for the stairwell. He burst onto the parking level as Nico grabbed Amelia's arm, yanking her toward one of the vans. "Let her go!" Luca's voice carried over the gunfire. He sprinted forward, exposed. Pain blazed along his ribs as a bullet found him, but he didn't slow, couldn't slow, not with Nico shoving Amelia into the van's side door. The engine roared. Tires squealed on wet pavement. Inside, Amelia fought like a wild thing, her elbow catching Nico's nose with a satisfying crunch. Blood sprayed across the interior. She lunged for the front, boot connecting with the gear shift. Metal ground against metal. The transmission jammed. The van fishtailed wildly, then slammed into a concrete barrier with bone-jarring force. Steam hissed from the crumpled hood. Inside, Amelia was already moving. She smashed her palm against a window, ignoring the glass that sliced into her skin. Blood ran down her wrist as she clawed at the frame. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Red and blue lights started to paint the wet streets. Nico kicked his way out the crushed door, fury twisting his features as he grabbed Amelia's hair. She fought him, but he was stronger, dragging her toward the river that bordered the hospital grounds. The same river where other bodies had been found, where secrets went to drown. Luca followed, one hand pressed to his bleeding side. His vision tried to gray at the edges, but he forced it back. Every step was purpose. Every breath was rage. His eyes promised death. Not quick, not clean, but absolute. The firefight behind them was ending. Most of Morozov's men were down or contained. Rafe's voice crackled over comms, coordinating the cleanup. But Luca heard none of it. His world had narrowed to 3 things. Amelia's blood on broken glass, Nico's grip on her arm, and the river's dark waters waiting below. Rain fell harder now, drumming against metal and skin. Lightning split the sky, turning everything to stark shadow and brilliant light. In that flash, Luca saw Emilia's face, not afraid, but fierce, fighting, surviving. His bullet wound throbbed with each step, but he kept moving. The river's edge was just ahead. The river fog rolled thick as smoke across the docks, turning sodium lights into ghostly halos. Chain links rattled as Nico shoved Emilia onto the rusted barge, her boots scraping corroded metal. The wheelhouse loomed ahead, a skeletal shadow where Morozov waited, his bulk filling the doorway. "Careful with the merchandise," Morozov drawled in accented English. His men worked quickly, threading heavy chains through the wheelhouse frame. The message was clear: one wrong move, and they'd dump her into the black water below. Emilia's shoulder throbbed where the bullet had grazed her, but she kept her spine straight. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her fear. Even as they positioned her near the edge, where the fog parted to reveal the oily river surface far below. Footsteps echoed on metal. Luca emerged from the mist like an avenging angel, blood darkening his shirt but his movements fluid and lethal. His eyes found Emilia first, always first, before settling on Morozov with predatory focus. "A trade," Luca said, voice carrying across the damp air. The original microfilm for the girl. Morozov's laugh was ugly. "You think I believe you brought the real thing?" "See for yourself!" Luca raised his hand, and something whistled through the fog above. A sleek drone materialized, dropping a metal case that burst open midair. Instead of microfilm, a cloud of confetti scattered in the wind. A diversion that pulled everyone's attention up for one crucial second. Luca moved like lightning. The first guard went down with a sickening crack as Luca snapped his arm at the elbow. The second rushed him with a knife. Luca caught his wrist and used the man's momentum to slam him face first into a support beam. The third got off 2 wild shots before Luca closed the distance, disarming him with a twist that shattered fingers. From the shore came a single, precise rifle crack. Rafe, despite his bandaged ribs, had found his perch. The chain mechanism controlling the wheelhouse lever exploded in a shower of sparks. The heavy links slithered free, no longer a threat. Nico snarled and yanked Emilia toward the barge's edge. But she'd been waiting for this moment. Her thumb found the knife wound in his side from their earlier fight and drove in hard. Nico's grip loosened for just 1 second. All Luca needed. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides, breaking Nico's hold and sending him sprawling. In one fluid motion, he kicked Nico's legs out and forced him to his knees, gun pressed to the back of his head. "Your call, Em," Luca said softly, never taking his eyes off Nico. Emilia's chest heaved as she looked at the man who'd helped orchestrate her father's death, who'd tried to use her as a pawn. But she thought of her ER patients, of the lives she'd sworn to save. "Justice," she said firmly, "not revenge." Luca nodded once, pride flickering in his eyes. "Hold him for the judge," he ordered his men. "Along with this." He pulled Emilia's phone from his pocket, the recording of Nico's confession from the parking lot still safely stored. A movement caught Emilia's eye, Morozov lunging for a fallen gun, desperation making him clumsy. Luca's reaction was instantaneous. 1 shot, center mass. Morozov collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, taking the Bratva threat with him. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Through the fog came the click of heels on concrete. Judge Moretti appeared at the edge of the dock, flanked by plainclothes officers. Her eyes swept the scene. Emilia alive, Luca wounded but standing, justice being served. She gave a single sharp nod that carried the weight of permission, and absolution both. The fog curled around them as Luca turned to Emilia. Blood matted his shirt, but his eyes burned with an intensity that stole her breath. "You're mine forever," he said, voice low and raw with emotion. "If you want me." Emilia stepped close, her hands coming up to cup his face. His skin was fever hot under her palms, his pulse racing at her fingertips. "I choose you," she whispered. The docks bustled with activity around them, officers securing the scene, medics attending the wounded, Nico being cuffed and led away. But in that moment, they existed in their own pocket of fog-shrouded peace. Luca's hand settled at her waist, careful of her injuries, holding her like something precious rather than possessed. Judge Moretti barked orders nearby, taking control of the situation with practiced efficiency. Evidence was collected, statements taken. The river lapped at the barge's hull, its dark waters now bearing witness to justice rather than concealing crimes. Rafe appeared silently at their side, rifle slung across his back, watching their perimeter with unwavering vigilance even as the danger passed. His loyalty had never wavered, and his presence now was both protection and celebration. The first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky, burning off the fog in patches. Soon the sun would rise on a new day, one where truth had emerged from shadow, where choices made in love outweighed those made in fear, where justice prevailed not through vengeance but through the strength of doing what was right. 2 weeks slipped by like water through fingers. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the storefront windows of Amelia's clinic-to-be, painting golden rectangles across newly installed cabinets and freshly painted walls. The neighborhood wasn't fancy. That was exactly the point. This was where help was needed most. Workers moved efficiently through the space, installing medical-grade cabinets that had arrived thanks to an anonymous donor foundation. Amelia smiled, knowing Luca's fingerprints were all over this gift, though he'd never admit it directly. The past 14 days had reshaped their world. Nico's recorded confession, combined with the ledger evidence, had given Judge Moretti everything needed to methodically dismantle the worst players while protecting innocent family members. Morozov's network had crumbled like a house of cards, leaving space for something new to grow. Luca had used the truth to clear his father's name, then immediately implemented sweeping reforms. No trafficking, no drugs near schools, no exploitation of the vulnerable. He enforced these new rules with the same ruthless efficiency he'd once applied to maintaining the old order. Those who objected learned quickly that his mercy had limits. Amelia checked her phone, a message from Judge Moretti requesting a meeting that evening. The judge had been instrumental in these changes, wielding law and influence like surgical instruments to excise corruption while preserving what could be salvaged. The clinic's front door chimed. Luca entered, pristine, in a charcoal suit despite the summer heat. His presence still made her breath catch, the controlled power in his movements, the way his eyes softened when they found her. "The permit's cleared," he said without preamble. "You can open in 3 weeks." She crossed to him, careful of the paint-splattered drop-cloths. That was fast. Judge Moretti helped expedite things. He caught her hand, thumb brushing her knuckles. "She wants to see us both tonight, about the oath." The oath that had kept them apart, untouched and unharmed, had served its purpose. They both knew it was time to release its chains, but doing things properly mattered. Respect mattered. "I've shown her the clinic's funding structure," Luca continued. "Every dollar is clean, laundered legally through the foundation network I built for the shelters years ago. You can verify everything." "I trust you," Amelia said, "but I'll still check, because that's who I am." His smile was swift and approving. "I'd expect nothing less." They walked through the space together, discussing placement of equipment and security measures. The workers gave them space, recognizing power even if they didn't know details. Luca and Amelia had decided to keep their relationship private for now, protecting both the clinic's reputation and giving his reforms time to take root. Later that evening, they sat in Judge Moretti's chambers as she officially released Luca from the untouched clause of his oath. The judge's eyes were bright with unshed tears as she thanked him privately for choosing love over vengeance, for protecting Amelia while letting her make her own choices. "The oath served its purpose," she said. "Now build something new, something chosen, not chained." From there, they drove to the cemetery as the sun began to set. They laid lilies on 4 graves, their parents all connected by the tangles of fate and choice. The music box ballerina, stripped of its mechanical secrets, rested among the flowers, a symbol of transformation. The workers had long since gone home when they returned to the clinic. Luca pulled Amelia close in the empty space, their bodies fitting together like puzzle pieces, finally finding their match. His touch was reverent but electric. Her response was bold but tender. They met as equals, each step consensual and carefully chosen. "I want a future with you," he murmured against her hair. "Built on choices we make together." "Starting here?" She gestured to the clinic in progress. "Starting anywhere you want. The foundation is legitimate. I've been planning an exit strategy from the old ways for years. This clinic, the shelters, the reforms, they're just the beginning." Amelia traced the scar on his forearm, the one that had first connected them. "And us?" "Private for now, to protect what we're building, but never hidden." His fingers skimmed her jaw. "I won't deny what you mean to me." They ended the evening on his penthouse terrace, the city spreading below them like a carpet of stars. Luca had shed his suit jacket and tie, his shirt unbuttoned at the throat, a rare display of casual intimacy. He held Amelia against his chest, their hearts beating in sync as church bells marked the hour. "Every day," he murmured into the soft skin behind her ear, "I choose you." She turned in his arms, rising on tiptoe to brush her lips against his jaw. And I choose us. In the distance, the clinic's sign flickered to life for the first time, testing the new electrical work. The music box's lullaby existed now only in memory, replaced by the living symphony of their city, car horns and voices, laughter and life. This was their domain now, not to rule but to protect, together.